and this is a very important part for library to combine real life practice and theory. And on the other hand, we are building a bridge between local Armenian architectural community and Italian architectural community. And thank you, Jacopo, for coming. And I hope besides the lecture, which is going to be around 1 hour, you will have some questions to Jacopo, and we will have a chance to discuss some things and also record it. After that, we'll have a chance to have a talk in the courtyard. So Jacopo is a special guest for us because we have a lot of books here, but we don't write actually a lot. We have a lot of interests, how to make texts, how to package them into those things called books. And Jacopo has a lot of experience in it, and I hope he will tell us a lot about it. Thank you, Jacopo, for coming, and then the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good evening. Do you prefer I stay standing like that, or I can sit? Okay, sorry if I'm not visible from there. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. It has been a wonderful tour these days, and I hope to tell you something interesting about the way in which we make text about architecture, about different media, through different media. Okay, I'm going to tell you something about these possible different media. This is one of the media. I'm there and building something. It's called The Pleasure of the Text. Quite strange that I start with a slide in which I build something, but it is a beautiful story. It was this summer in August, September in Sicily. I was invited to an architectural public art festival. It was a festival for self-construction in which we needed to teach students how to self-build architecture. And they asked me to do an architecture to live in the woods. It was a magnificent place in the woods of Sicily. There was this beautiful view, and there were a beautiful small forest. And I didn't know the invitation, but the place or the architecture, the device I designed to live in the wood was a small library. It was a portable, movable library. Sorry, I hope it was not my fault. Library? Okay. I mean, it is very scrappy, this library, because it's one of my rule I build just with stolen pieces. So in this case, during the night, I went with my students to steal pieces to build this sort of cart. And we found a place in the wood that we really like, with this fig and this open space inside the forest. You could see also the sea from that point, so we prepared the place. We designed this cart, this movable structure. It has some veils to stay in the shadow, also not in the woods. And we also asked people to give us some books about woods and about nature, about biodiversity, about living in the woods. So anyone could go there, bring the cart where they wanted, and see something about nature. And this book, okay, sorry. And one of the book that is this one is one book of mine. This one that is called Post-Human Architecture, and it is about architectures not just for people but also for animals, plants, and other species, which I wrote, of course, but I also designed specifically in each part also with these images because of technical reasons. I couldn't afford to pay the copyright for the American publisher, so I decided to do collage and different kind of things in order to avoid to pay copyright. But to me, I told you this story because to me it's very interesting the idea of making books or texts about architecture that is a piece of design itself. And it's sort of piece of design that goes from the definition of an image to the structure of a text to the place in which you can read and then again to the architecture or the environment. So I'm trying to tell you something about making books about architecture or making journals about architecture. Most part of the presentation will be about one specific journal in architectural design, but with the idea of telling you about a design. So not just about text, not about theory, but about a real piece of design. I generally hate when people start introducing themselves, but in this case I need to introduce myself for a specific reason. Because I'm here as a writer today, I'm an architect, but I'm best known as a sort of bookmaker, or not bookmaker in that sense. I don't collect bet, I don't crash thumb to the people that pay, but for a reason. I mean, this reason was an historical reason, that I graduated in the middle of the big financial and economic crisis, and when I graduated, there was no job anywhere. And I started looking for jobs, and it was impossible. The only thing was to distribute advertisement for architecture studios. And I started working for ONGs and international entities like UNESCO and something like that. I built for free. I designed and conducted the yard of a guest house in Africa for cooperation and development, but in the end, I couldn't make a living from that kind of architecture. I traveled a lot, but it was impossible. And at a certain moment in 2011, the Politecnico di Milano, that is the university there, offered me the possibilities of doing a PhD that was paid with a wage, with a salary. And so I accepted because I didn't have other choices. And I was studying, at the moment I was studying urbanism, urban design and these kind of things. And I was offered a PhD in interior architecture and interior design. And I said, okay, let's try to do something with that. And so I started studying. In that moment, there was a huge movement about tactical urbanism and reappropriation of public spaces and the different devices to reappropriate public spaces. So I decided to work in this field and also working with some studios like this one. These were the first, the initial steps of studios that in the afterwards became very big, and we worked together to create these new devices to reappropriate public spaces. But the point is that at that moment, doing a PhD meant doing a book, doing a research that should be a book. Now I'm in the PhD board at Politecnico di Milano, and today the PhD could be a design, could be a project, could be a research by design, through design, and it's very rich, and it's a very good opportunity for an architect. But in that moment, still rules were very strict, and for us, doing a PhD meant doing a theoretical research, very rigid, very strict, and it meant, of course, publishing books, articles, and this kind of things. Also because to go ahead with a career in university, you needed to have a track record of publications, you needed to have this kind of things. So I started doing the research and publishing the first books about the way in which people reappropriated the city, how the idea of interior architecture could be valuable also for urban design in order to make spaces, public spaces that are more livable for people, and so also more interesting from a certain point of view. And I started doing working, specifically in the publication sector. This one was a first book series that we founded after my PhD. But most of all, about I started working in research. My first research, I was working with a big European consortium with a major European project that it was called Traces, and it was about the reappropriation of European public spaces. It was called conflicted or contextual heritage. The reappropriation of this heritage through artistic practices. It was quite interesting. It was completely out of my expertise, and that is a particularity of the research. That is a particularity also of professional practice. You take a job, maybe you don't know exactly which is the scope, which is the topic, but you say, okay, I'll do it. And I did this kind of first research. Some interesting outcomes are collected in this book that is called Contested Spaces, Concerted Project Design for Vulnerable Memories. Sorry, that's so difficult also to read. The title, you can imagine the whole book. No, but there are some beautiful projects inside. There is also a lot of theory, but it's about cultural studies, about decolonization, about it was something that was very, very strong in that age. And European Commission wanted to fund this kind of project. And then I found a niche in this project that is about the reappropriation of public spaces through art. And I went ahead doing this kind of project also in Italy, in the peripheries and semi-abandoned public space of the peripheries. And also in these cases, I needed to write another book. And then again, working with the studios, which I worked from the graduation. So studios working in tactical urbanism and reappropriation of public spaces. Also in this case, this is probably the most interesting book for a professional practitioners, because we are describing processes, products of design in this case, and so it's not so theoretical. I was here a principal investigator for a European project, and since I was in this case I was the principal investigator, I had the opportunity of changing the research and doing something really practical, also organizing a public competition for young architects and working directly on the field. These are parts of the book. And then, again, the context changed again with the COVID. With the COVID, there was a sort of new trend that was the rediscovery of nature within cities. And I was called for doing a project in a university that was funded at a national level, and that was about the rediscovery of nature in the big metropolis of Italy. In this case, it's about Milano. It's a book which I wrote with Alessandro Rocca, that is going to be part of this series of conference. But it was very interesting because in reality it started again as a sort of pilot project for doing different things, for doing speculative projects, and also for having other sort of spin-offs. This was a project I brought to Seoul Biennale. There was a beautiful model that I brought to Seoul Biennale, but it's not there. But you can trust me, it was a beautiful installation in Seoul Biennale. I tried to find later the installation. And then it gave me the opportunity also because of the lockdown to work independently. So I was working parallelly on these different fields, that is the acknowledgement and the mapping of the nature within the city, different spin-offs and so on, projects and installations, and also about this book that is sort of my personal way of dealing with this kind of topic that is the field. And then after this one, I was called to this big project that has been funded by the Recovery Plan, the European Recovery Plan, that is the foundation of a national biodiversity future center. The back is the famous Bosco Verticale. We are in the same group with Stefano Boeri and the Urban Biodiversity Group. And in this case, again, I was asked to take care of the communication and dissemination sphere of this project, and I created this book series about urban biodiversity. You see, I mean, I show you that the outcomes in reality, I'm called to work in these projects, but I'm called to always work to these kind of outcomes, the dissemination part, the design of how we communicate the knowledge about architecture and the knowledge that we gather around urban studies and this kind of. And now I'm the principal investigator of this project. This one is about architectural design teaching, and that is something very interesting for me. And I tell you later something about this field that is specifically related to STOA, that is the journal that I want to show you today. I want to present you today. Very quickly about teaching, sorry, this is sort of parenthesis, I don't know. It was just to tell you that is, I mean, this sort of narrative way of thinking architecture, it's a way because of this sort of training. I mean, I had to work in this way as part of my architectural teaching. I forgot to tell you something very important. That is, I showed you different researches, and I told you that is, I was called to take care of the communication dissemination part, and also to create books, these journals, reviews, this kind of thing. But for a specific reasons. Reason that is, in Italy there is a rule for which if you are a researcher, so if you are a lecturer, an assistant professor in a public university, you cannot legally design. And so you cannot have a professional practice. I mean, I own a professional practice, but I cannot sign the project. My wife is a saint woman, and she takes care of everything. But that is quite problematic, because we are forbidden to do any kind of design that is not about communication and dissemination of the research. So to me, the idea of doing books, journals, and this kind of things is a sort of outlet for design. I mean, my design experience that I would like to keep alive in some way. Then when you're a professor, a full professor, you can have a part-time, and so you can also have a practice, but when you are a researcher, you cannot. But at the same time, I had to say that I like very much to work in this field, because the narrative dimension of architecture, it was something that in the beginning was not very strong for me, also because of the Italian attitude towards architecture. Italian attitude towards architecture is very, let's say, monumental from a certain point. I mean, architecture built idea. Also for the people that are more interested in the everyday activities, but still the idea that architecture is a built idea and not a series of experiences quite strong. And so the idea of working on, instead on the narrative dimension is something that I wanted to experiment, especially when teaching. When working, I always work in the fields of living in the wilderness, and so the relationship with nature and architecture, and working always with students to some self-built projects. This one, for instance, was a public space for animals. I tell you because, I mean, it was not for dogs. It was for insects, snakes, and this kind of thing. We prepared different rocks to create a different pH in the ground to attract different. This is tufa as a specific kind of tufa, creating different spaces for water, permeability, and so on and so forth. But in the end, it was really appreciated also by dogs. I didn't pay the dog. He came naturally. I don't know why. And again, always in this relationship between nature and architecture. This one we built at the Burning Man Festival last year. It was the only thing that I did without stealing pieces. But I mean, I'm very proud because it cost just 3,500 euros, the whole thing. And so it was like stolen somewhere, almost stolen for the cost. Also because it was an American supplier, so you can imagine. Okay, sorry. Again, the point today I wanted to tell you about making journals. And before I was telling you about the books, but in reality I started with journals, and because of the need that I had of publishing. While doing my PhD, I started working for this journal that is really poor from a certain point of view, but it was founded in 1965 by a famous historian, Renato De Fusco, who died 2 months ago. So it was very active, and it was a very important piece of the architectural culture at that time. And I started working for him, doing reviews, going different places, covering all the design activities. And then also with other, by chance, with other entities, like this one that is at the International Journal of Interior Architecture, that is Houston-based, an American journal, but also I wrote for many different magazines and journals, and sometimes very scientific and very boring, like ones. Sometimes instead very commercial and very boring because very commercial, and just in some cases like this one was very experimental, or the architectural designer, I co-curated the issue about post-human architecture. And it was very interesting because I could also find new ways of dealing with this communication topic. This is a fanzine that I designed for that project that was called Traces. It was about the reappropriation of contested heritage in Europe through public art, and to make this sort of reappropriation more diffused and capillary. I designed this sort of fanzine that could be illegally distributed in the museums and in these spaces. It was very interesting because it was the first one. It was the first illegal fanzine to be funded by European Commission, and in the end it was successful. I forgot to bring some samples, but I made to you. And this is an issue that I love very much because this was an exhibition. I designed the setup of the exhibition in Edinburgh at the Royal College, and it was a very nice installation. Also, in this case, very, very cheap. I can tell you all the details about the budget is a sort of. And then I also, I mean, working with different media, I helped a collective of young researchers, young architects from Naples to create this audio zine that is not a podcast, it's sort of a journal, but that is just with sounds and also with an experimental way of dealing with sound, not just sort of a feel, but also working the different sounds of architecture. And the three experiences that I am most involved in now are this one. I take care of a section of this journal that is called ARC. It's a journal of about ordinary architecture in Italy. It is a very nice journal, very refined. I take care of the section of about landscape, ordinary landscape, but still it is a very specific kind of journal that is it's an institutional one. It's a commercial journal that means that it is sustained, economically sustained through advertisement. We have the funds are there is a private publisher. There are the funders that are the clients who buy the advertisement in the journal. So this is a normal one. This one instead, which I am going to speak later, is STOA, that is a journal for about architectural design teaching, and that is completely different. It's instead a self-funded experiences that we some way created with some friends. Later on, I will tell you something about that. And it was initially completely spontaneous and unsolicited, but now it is economically sustainable. And this one is instead something that I do in the weekends. That is an anthology. That is an open access anthology. I have a certain love for piracy. This problem that you for doing something with good images, good text, you always needed to add to pay the copyright to find the owners of the image, and this is an experiment in piracy because it's we found a way to create an anthology that could be open access for everyone without paying anything. It's online, it's open access. And it's made because we found a website with the server in the US and complying with the law of fair use. So it's totally for free. It's just for educational and non-commercial activities. And in this way, we can share all the knowledge that we have about architecture without asking permission because it's for critical and educational reason. It started as a sort of a tool that I wanted to give my students and to have the access to more sources, to a wide open source. But at the same time, if I wanted, for instance, to make a photocopy, legally I needed to pay the fee, and also I was discouraged by university, for instance, to upload the digital copies of my books. I was forbidden by my publisher to do this thing. So we found this legal way of dealing with the topic, and I'm very happy to do these things for students in the weekend. But I wanted to tell you about STOA from a technical point of view. I hope this part is not boring for you, because I was asked to also to speak about the design of a journal from a technical point of view. That could be also interesting for others. And while collecting the slides and while speaking, in the end I realized that maybe it is too much technical, but I can skip some parts.
Yeah, I mean, you have this one with Alvin Boyarsky on the elephant, and then, okay. No, this part to me it's very important, but I underlined the very important thing. No, that is, I mean, I want to tell you something about the making of a journal as a sort of, I mean, series of suggestions. And the first one to me is this one that is what is a journal for. And this is a beautiful, the whole quotation is beautiful, but the underlined part particularly by Walter Benjamin, that is the announcement for a new journal in 1922. And it is very interesting because he says which is the function, the historical function of a journal. That is, the newspapers. The function of the newspaper is to tell the chronicle, and so it is to tell something that is already ongoing. I mean, a newspaper cannot tell something that is closed because it's not interesting. I mean, you don't buy a newspaper to say something that is already finished. You're taking something to see what is ongoing. A book tells something that is already finished. I mean, you cannot buy a book about something that is suspended and you don't know exactly the end because, I mean, it would be insubstantial. So the point is, what is the function of the journal? And that is very interesting because it says the journal, the vocation of a journal, the function is to proclaim the spirit of its age. That is, it's not to tell something, it's not tell something that is closed, it's not to tell something that is ongoing, but it's to tell something about the cultural context or the spirit of the age. And so for us it's not so much important the single article of STOA that is about architectural design teaching, but it's the reason why we decided to speak about architectural design teaching and why today is important to speak about architectural design teaching. It is not about pedagogy, but about the tools for teaching architectural design. For us, it's very important because it's not we don't have, the articles on methodology, pedagogy of design, but it's about the tools, how you deal with it. For instance, the first issue about model making, the second one is by drawing, then rendering, and then also workshop, travels, all the things that is about the tools for teaching architectural design. So what is the spirit of the age that we wanted to interpret some way? It was born during the pandemic, and we were coming from other editorial activities. We were 4 friends. We were closed at home, and so at a certain moment we talked about doing something together, even if we were split. And it was fun because we were proposed separately to think something about architectural design teaching that it was something that at the moment was not very present, the educational context. So it started as an academic journal that when I say that it's an academic journal, it looks like it's an insult, but it's not because it's, it's something boring, so on. But academic because the academy, so the university is the site of production because we test our article by teaching. The academy is a preferential audience. That is, it's interesting for other professors to experiment in the same way. And academy, of course, for us was an important market gap. So something that was not covered by the publishing in that moment, and also today. I mean, you can find journals that are about pedagogy of design that are mostly about the methodology, and so let's say more in a philosophical way than in a design way. And but in this way was something that was not covered. And for us, it was very important for this reason. I told you the spirit of the age. I already told you that from a certain point of view, in Italy, we are some way forbidden to design while we are working at university. And so there is a sort of, it's a new law, it's a law from 2010, and we have a sort of generational gap. So my friend and I are part of that first generation that practically, apart from 2-3 years of professional practice, but when we entered in university, we were forbidden to design anymore. So we are part of that generation that has been instructed and trained specifically for doing research and for teaching, and without any other possibilities. And at the same time, there was not any kind of journal or any kind of media that we could use to tell our experience about teaching. I mean, we were instructed to do that and to do research about that, but there was not a real outlet for this kind of. Sometimes I pass the different the slides showing the specificities of the journal, but those are just technicalities. We designed this journal in a specific way with a monographic approach. Monographic, it means that we want each issue to have a clear and instrumental topic. That is, that could be really a tool and not about a speculation about the teaching of design or pedagogy, but something that could be really used for doing something. And also the topic, when preparing the call for papers for collecting the different contributions, we wanted to make very precise questions, like how you use model making in your teaching activities, which is the benefit of doing something like that. So, and we wanted also people to answer in a very direct way. So without, creating a sort of philosophical or theoretical framework for their speculation, but speaking in a very practical way from a practical experience. So it's a practice-based and design-led content. Everything is about the experimentation, the verification through design, and we have we started with a thematic annual grouping. So in the first year is about models, drawings, and renderings. That is the practical tool or the practical tools for teaching. The second one was about exercises, workshops, and journeys. So it was about the the organizational tools. And then the last one was about the references, the lexicon, and the interferences. That was some way about other kind of tools that are mostly methodological. But also, in these cases, we asked for very clear experiences. That is, how do you use references and case studies in your teaching activities, which is the way in which they are productive, and so on and so forth. This was the number 10. It was a sort of party, and you see Maradona and also the editorial. The offices are in Naples, so that's very felt, the number 10. How we structure the journal, we try to maintain a sort of geographic attitude that is, instead of closing the idea, the topic by creating a sort of monolithic block, we decided to open each time the topic to possible interferences and possible contributions from other fields and possible geographic interferences. So it's a network-based process. That is, we are working. We are a small group of people working always in this as editorial staff, but we have a very, very big group of people always suggesting us which could be the best people to contact, which is the best way of dealing with a certain topic, because our research is exploratory aimed. I mean, we really know little. When we open a call, we don't have any predefined idea about the final outcome. So we are doing this kind of journal to discover something we don't know. And so we really work in this way, and we decided to maintain also this kind of geographic attitude also when doing the structure, that is a sort of cartography. You see here for the first nine issues, the people who really wrote or produced drawings for the single issues. And also each number is structured with a sort of cartography. There are some coordinates that are the first two articles that we write to give the coordinates of the topic. Then the positions that are two invited contributions from renowned architects. And then there are the correspondences, reports, and traces that are going to give different contributions from different points of view. This, for instance, is a coordinate. It's something in position. These are from the section reports. And this is from correspondences. And this is sort of an intermediate section, just as a visualization. This was the part of model making. And then there is traces. That is a very interesting part that is mostly for students because we publish the programs, the syllabus, the curricula of different schools, also to give students the possibility of have an orientation in the architectural schools, and also the interviews with the people working there. That is, the production is very counterintuitive. I mean, it's a printed scientific journal. That means I mean, scientific journal generally is published by, I don't know, a publisher like Wiley or Routledge, something like that. It's generally always online, only online, because the point is that no one buys a scientific journal. I don't buy a scientific journal, for sure. And so the point is that a scientific journal has not an economic sustainability beyond the sale to libraries, to institutional libraries. Not libraries like that, I mean institutional like universities and this kind of things. But we wanted to reach an audience that was bigger, and also with the language, to have a language that was more, that is more direct, and we wanted to have also this sort of okay. And in the beginning was completely self-funded. Then in the end, I mean, this year we reached. Yeah. So we paid for the distribution, the printing, and all the different things. But then the last year we reached the economic sustainability. We are very happy. We are now we have the subscriptions that are paying for. So the point is that we try to mediate between the idea of having a scientific journal, so something that is used just by researchers, and to have an architectural magazine, to have a sort of validation structure that could be useful for a scientific journal and also commercial appeal that it could interest other people, and a mediation between the content correctness, so something that is very important for scientific journals, and the formal freedom also to experiment on something more. And what is for us very interesting is that, as I was telling you, the spirit of this age, or the spirit of the time, there is a change in the producers. I mean, in the past, the journals maker, at least in Italy, were mainly architects practitioners. I mean, in Italy, Casabella, Domus were founded by Gio Ponti, by Ernesto. They were architects practitioners. Then there was a moment in the 70s, the 80s, that journal making was some way brought ahead by architects slash intellectuals, so people some way having the need of giving their opinion. And now we don't give our opinion. now we are architects, researchers, because I mean, the difference is that we are looking for something we don't know. So we are not willing to express our opinion about a specific topic. We don't have opinions. And that was very nice, because in expanding our fields, and so trying to build a sort of network that was large enough, we could also make contacts with people we have always admired, but in the end we couldn't contact for other reasons, like in this case, great masters like Alexander Brodsky or Jeremy Tilla, and they were super happy to speak about their teaching activities. In other cases, maybe they were more shy about the professional ones, but about the teaching activities, they were very happy to share with other people their experiences. And we could also form, we could know new people that, I mean, we wouldn't be able to know. And this, again, it's a change of means, and I want to go ahead quite quickly, but it's a change of means in the communication, of course, from the physical print to the Internet 1.0, social network, and the social algorithm, that of course creates some criticality. Because this idea of dealing with a sort of research-led and exploratory way of doing, of investigating, it's a way of counterbalancing the way in which we receive, the way we are dealing with communication. Today is really difficult to find something that is unexpected, or find something that is not in your personal sphere, in your personal knowledge. And so I mean, breaking this sort of bubble is harder and harder today, also for us, that we are always looking for something that we didn't know before. Still, we recognize that today the way in which communication is circulating is quite challenging. And of course, we have some criticalities that are, again, maintaining a certain balance between the scientific relevance, and so telling something that is really worth of research, so something that has never been told before, that would be innovative, rigorous, and relevant for the community of practice of architects, but also the mediation between scientific relevance and the need of selling, for selling, and the sort of mediation in means, in terms of means, between a sort of rigor and the fetishization of the paper object. I really like paper, but I wouldn't like that the journal would be just a container, a beautiful container without any content inside. I want to close with this section that is not about suggestion, but it was. I wanted to tell what I discovered in these years working with text making about architecture and working in text making as a piece of design. That was something that in reality it took some time. In the beginning, there was a series of, I was following a series of rules that were the rules of scientific writing, the correctness of scientific writing. And so from a certain point of view, I didn't feel the space for the real design of the text. And it was a pity in reality because it's like technology or structural design for architecture. It's something that you need to take into account, but it's not that is the limit of the whole design of the whole project. And so in these years, I finished my PhD 9 years ago, and in these years, what I learned is, and I want to transmit this learning. That is, I learned how to take pleasure from the text, from writing. It's not something that it's about still writing and how to do it. Enjoying writing and enjoying it as a piece of architecture. The first way which I learned to work on this is to work on style. So work on the formal experimentation. That is sometimes more free in writing than in actually in architecture. At least in Milano, you cannot speak at university. You cannot speak of style, as it was a sort of bad word. The style is our approach, and it's the character and the language that we are using. But in text writing, we can definitely speak of style and work with style and experiment with style. This was one of the first article. I was experimenting with style. I needed to write about this building that is quite crazy, eclectic building in Milano. And when I visited it, it was so big, so complex, so difficult that I said I cannot do an article of 15,000 characters of this building because I cannot describe it. It's too complex. It looks like a Jorge Luis Borges tale. And so I said, okay, I write it like a Jorge Luis Borges tale. And I write it in this style. And I don't know if it was appreciated, but I really like writing like that. So to me, it's good. It's good in this way. And so from that moment on, I was trying to understand which could be the style of writing for the style of building or the character, how to transmit the character of building, also by working on the style of writing. And then also for scientific articles, I try to find ways that are, I hope they are unnoticed, because otherwise I could be banished from the good universities of the world. Where, for instance, this one is an article about the public space design that I decided to write in the style of David Foster Wallace. It's also the title, carefully annotated tutorial. It's very in that style. And also there is a sort of play with the footnotes. You can read either the text or the footnotes in lines without any sort of a gap, and you have two completely different texts by reading the two things. Or this one is the last article I wrote for Architectural Design magazine, that is built like a recipe, and so it's sort of instead of telling methodology, it's a sort of recipe. So one thing is to work and to experiment and to enjoy the working on style. The second thing that is even more obscure from a certain point of view, but I like it very much. And so if there is something that I could tell how to be pleased by doing a piece of design like that, this is a secret. And it's to work on the structure of the text in the same way I would work on the structure of a building, starting again from a narrative, vocation or a suggestion. When I wrote this book, The Posthuman Architectures, I wrote this book, it's about, I told you, architecture is not just for people, but also for animals, plants, and intelligent technologies. It was, it was meant as a sort of things, futuristic things, but in reality, the only reason for which I wrote it is because I like animals and robots, and so I wanted to do something with animals and robots inside. And but to find the structure was really difficult because I didn't know how to work with this thing, because it's something quite new. And I found in a Borges book this tale that in reality is a fake review to a fake book of a fake author. And it's really nice because he described the structure of this fake book of this fake author, and telling also all the criticalities and let's say the articulation of this system. And so, and now if you see the list of content of this book, you see there are just 9 tales about 9 different architectures, but in reality is based on this one. So what looks very plain, in reality is based on this structure that is quite crazy, because I needed to find some case studies that could work inside the structure. I chose the case studies after defining this kind of structure. And this kind of structure should work from a linear point of view in a chronological way, then 2 by 2 and 3 by 3 with different comparative and thematic structures. So the two chapters would form a sort of dialogue between 2 different case studies for comparison, with the central one that should be sort of a mediation between the whole system. Then 3 by 3 that should form a sort of subsection about the topic. And then there was a chronological that still each time from a strategic point of view, from each chapter, it should again interpret a different way of seeing a relationship between people and other species, like grafting system, hybrids, and so on and so forth. And then also it's quite the structure also, the structure of the chapter, the paragraph, everything is, it's so strict. But in the end, I'm very happy because no one noticed this kind of structure. No one noticed that it was strict. In reality, this one was a sort of help to make the tale smoother. Because from a certain point of view, this way of designing made in the end the writing smoother. Probably there should have been something here to close with a special effect, but it's not. So this is a sort of fate sign, and I finish here, if you please.
Thank you, Jacopo. I should fix something, because at the very beginning I forget to say we had a Zoom call with Jacopo, and he said that he will bring something to the library, to the collection. And I met him in the airport during the night. There was a delay. And Jacopo came with carry-on luggage and small shopper here. And I had some guesses that there are several books in the shopper. But today, Jacopo came with all those books, and there is also a stack behind him. And I realized that for personal belongings, it was just sharper, and the whole carry-on was for books. Thank you very much. And also thank you for the presentation. We have just one microphone, but I hope it won't be a problem to ask questions. Please do it.
Thank you for your presentation. I've noticed the theme of habitability is a term you've came up with, perhaps, and your interest in post-human. Is that the horizon you're taking this journal into? Is there a theoretical sort of arc to it?
The inhabitability is a very central core of my researches, because I started with the PhD in interior architecture, and for us the main focus of interior architecture was to find the condition for inhabitability in any kind of spaces. And I always worked in radical forms of inhabitability. That is, for instance, how to inhabit the public sphere of the city, and so time to time it's always to force the idea of inhabitability. And I worked in the same way for post-human architectures, that of course is about how we can inhabit with other species and other form of intelligence. Now I'm working on other books about the idea of inhabitability, radical form of inhabitability. But yes, it's always a part of also of the journal of especially not so much Stoa, but mostly ARC is one of the main focus. I take care of the section about landscape, and still it's always how we deal with landscape, not from just an aesthetic point of view or from a design point of view, but how we could really live in this space. And yes, but it's really something always central for.
I mean, the post-human discourse is all about the post-human agency or the AI and all of that. Are you at all interested in the technological aspect or the surveillance or the political dimension of it all? Or is it merely, as you said, a means to talk about the crawling animal life?
To me, it's a way of speaking about animal life. But I'm very interested also because I'm dealing with two PhD theses that are about, the idea of not of artificial intelligence, but mostly about surveillance and the new technological uncanny. And that is not uncanny because in reality we don't notice it, and also about the affective power of atmosphere that is a way of selling a sort of commodification of spaces. I'm very interested about it. I'm not speaking in this book of these kind of outcomes, but we are actively dealing within the PhD board and with my PhD candidates, because it's something that is really, really important right now.
My question is very simple. Do students read? And is it obligatory to read or just for fun?
It depends. I mean, generally, no. Our students don't read. It's not, to me, it's not so tragic they don't read. I prefer they could read a beautiful piece of literature than a book of mine. It would be more important if they could read something that is important from a cultural point of view, that is really relevant from a cultural point of view. When I work in architectural design studio, I always have every 2 weeks I ask them to prepare an exhibition about something, about an exercise. They deal with a piece of design along the semester, but they need to work at this piece of design by preparing different things. And there is always a part related to express their stance as authors, as designers, because we would like them to consider themselves authors and not only draftsmen. And it is, and to me, this idea of expressing also by using other words, other pieces of literature, art, movie making is very important. And I also push them not reading so many things about architecture, but to read many things about their role in the world, the way of, and also push them to read beautiful things. That is the most important thing, is they want to produce beautiful things. And in this way, they are, they are reading, and they're very happy to read. I mean, they are completely free to read whatever they want. I don't think they read journals like that, but they are not the preferred audience. I mean, they are not the target, like the marketing target. If they are, if they find interesting, for instance, the part related to the different schools, the programs, we would be happy, because that part is for them, in order to have an orientation about the different schools in Europe and worldwide. For the rest, if I were a student, I wouldn't read it.
You said that you want to transmit your knowledge, but then you said that students are not your target audience. So I'm curious, who's your target audience at first, to whom you want to transmit your knowledge and your curiosity as well? And the second question is, what is the importance of print media in the digital age?
I wouldn't call it knowledge. I would like to transmit something that I learned. And I think there are different media for different preferred audience. Journals, to me, have a precise target that is other teachers, other architects, other people working, I call it the scientific community and the community of practice. To me, students are not really, I don't know. I don't know how to say, but they are not the preferred audience of this kind of book, because in my opinion, the language is not the best one for them. It's very important for us to think about what we do in very practical terms, and this is the attempt that we do with the STOA. So not speaking in theoretical, but speaking really about practical things. But in my opinion, it's not the right language for students. And so there are other media, other tools for communicating and for transmitting knowledge or these kind of things. For me, the studio activity is always the best way of also doing architectural courses, theoretical courses or something like that. But I mean, really working and speaking face-to-face, showing on the laptop possible case studies, showing how to deal with a particular detail, and in a minute saying, I promise, I know that this solution works in this way, and you don't have to test, 10 different solutions, but it is this way that it works. So that way of dealing with students, to me, is the preferable one. And about the importance of doing physical printing, I don't know. Our idea was to create something that could be a sort of exception in that moment, and doing an exception, trying to individuate something with a very precise position, cultural position, but also position in the culture of mind. And we we were all coming from different editorial activities, working with physical printing, and for us it was something quite important to work on this media. And I don't know if it is the best solution from a communication point of view. It's not the best one from a scientific point of view, because from a scientific point of view, the retrievability of an article is an important thing. And the fact that our articles are not online because otherwise we couldn't afford to print, it's a tricky issue. And we are always dealing with this idea, for instance, doing a sort of embargo and so waiting 1 year and then putting everything online. But it's something we are still discussing. So it's a sort of open wound. We don't know. We like it like that, but we are always trying to improve the way in which we do.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I was really interested to ask, do you have a specific design for the journal, or sometimes you go wild and do some creative? Okay.
It was we were in fora and we decided the grids, the masters, and all these kind of things in a very artisanal way, and you can understand. I mean, it's very naive in the design, but we were at home and we couldn't do better from a certain point of view. But it was some way effective, even if it was very simple and very rough. And now that we are economically sustainable, we have a studio working with us and supporting us. And so now the project, the design is different also because we have professionals supporting us in different ways. But it's always like that. All the different activities are always a mediation between our very naive and very rough spirits, and then we have someone controlling the things. But the first issues were like that you see that.
Jacopo, which text should be written about Yerevan according to your 2 days experience here? Or what would be an issue of magazine in which you can find this invisible text?
I don't know. I mean, for the next, we are doing now 3 issues they are dedicated to schools, and there is one that is schools meant as buildings, so the importance of a building for architectural education. The second one is schools meant as a way of thinking, and so as the importance of a precise way of thinking in a certain for architectural teaching. The third one is school as a community, so a relationship between teachers, tutors, students, and also other kinds of communities working on it. And I think this specific reality, so the Library for Architecture is a particular kind of community that to me is amazing, and so that is really. That is really interesting, the way in which you have created this reality, and that you are working and you're still evolving this. It's a particular kind of community that to me is extremely interesting. Also because I come from a context that instead is losing and has completely lost this. This idea of participation, it's really everything is really commercial in Milano right now. And this idea, for instance, having a space for studying, for speaking with other people, to me is wonderful. If I need a space in my university, I need to book the space and pay the space. When I do a conference for 30 people, I need to pay my university 600 euros for the renting of the space. So that is crazy, you know. It's if the students need a space, they can have specific hours. Otherwise, they pay. It's something that is not good. And so I think this way of making community, not in a romantic traditional term, but I mean really practicing this way of managing the social situation. And then there is the article I would like to write that is about the fantastic place they brought me yesterday, the Writers' House in 7. Today I also discovered that Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir resided there. I would like to find the most beautiful way of telling this space that is extremely beautiful. And it's from this morning I was looking on the internet for different information about the site. I was thinking about the style of writing this article or this piece in order to render the atmosphere and the pleasure of being there. It was a fantastic pleasure yesterday.